Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name's Anna. I'm a clinical psychology doctoral candidate and I make videos about real life applications to psychology. So if that's your type of thing, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell notification button so that you can be informed about every new video twice a week. Today we're talking about the 3 ingredients of charisma based on this book, The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox Caban. I will include a link to this book in the description box if you want to check it out. We're not going to be going through all my notes on the whole thing because that would take a lot of time. I do recommend you buy the book because she talks about things more than just what we're talking about today. She talks about obstacles to charisma as well. I am thinking of maybe making a couple videos inspired by things she's mentioned in this book, specifically anxiety caused by uncertainty, the science behind visualization, what we get wrong about self-esteem. So if any of these seem interesting to you, please let me know and I will try to prioritize those for future videos. So when we talk about charisma, she had a really good quote in here about UK in the Victorian era. There was a woman who went on dates with 2 different people who were competing to be politicians, I believe. And there was a quote by this woman who said, "After dining with Mr. Gladstone, I thought he was the cleverest person in England. But after dining with Mr. Disraeli, I thought I was the cleverest person in England." And I think that's a really good way to start this conversation about charisma, because charisma isn't about glory. It isn't about making ourselves look good. It's really about making other people feel good about themselves. It's not something inborn. That is the charisma myth that she's talking about. Because these are behaviors usually learned in early childhood, a lot of people think that charisma is something you either have or you don't. But that's not the case. You can absolutely train yourself into having charisma. If you haven't ever given much thought to the concept of charisma, you might be wondering, why should I care about this? Why should I try to be charismatic? Well, she mentions that charisma helps you influence people. It helps you make more money. It gives you higher performance ratings at work. You have more options in relationships. People trust you more. You're a better leader. And you tend to be a more successful researcher and teacher. But the thing is, we cannot control all of our unconscious body language. But because our mind believes whatever we tell it, case in point is the placebo effect or anxious thoughts, where we tend to just believe whatever comes up in our mind. That means that if we can convince ourselves of something in our mind, even if it's not true, it will start to show up in our body language. So by creating an internal charismatic state, it will start to show externally as well. So in the next section, when I talk about the 3 ingredients of charisma, I will discuss body modifications and communication strategies, which are the external aspects of charisma. But I'm also going to discuss the mental mindset shifts to help you get into that internal state of charisma so that those more external aspects start to come more naturally. So according to Olivia Fox Caban, the 3 ingredients of charisma are presence, power, and warmth. Presence is really all about moment-to-moment awareness, mindfulness, attentiveness. It's about truly being present with the person in front of you, making them feel like you're really paying attention to what they're saying, basking in their presence rather than being distracted or planning what you're going to say next. Because people can perceive those micro expressions of distractibility or inattentiveness, even if you think that you're trying to mask it. Also, presence is great because in the sense that it's mindfulness, mindfulness helps you enjoy life more. It helps you be more present with the good times and cope with the bad times. So what are some ways to get that internal aspect of presence? What is a mindset shift to help you with presence? One thing you can try is you can imagine the person sitting in front of you is actually the most powerful or interesting person in the room. A lot of people said this about Bill Clinton, that when he spoke to you, you truly felt like the most important person in the world. When you're speaking to someone, really truly think about everything they're saying through the lens of, this is fascinating, this person has so much to teach me, they're so wonderful, I really need to pay attention to what they're providing me with. Another mindset shift is to get comfortable with discomfort. Basically, distress tolerance. I've spoken about distress tolerance. I have a video on that from DBT, so check it out up here somewhere. Getting comfortable with discomfort means that in the moment when you're feeling some discomfort, truly paying attention to it, bringing your attention inward instead of avoiding it, just experiencing it, not pushing it away. It could also look like making eye contact a little bit longer than feels comfortable. Or when you get into an elevator, turning to face the other people and just smiling at them. If you can master coping with discomfort, you have a huge advantage over everyone else. Because most humans do not want to feel uncomfortable. So if you can handle it, you can handle anything. Another mindset shift to help you be present internally is if you're getting distracted, if you feel yourself starting to have a wandering mind while someone is speaking to you, wiggling your toes, bringing yourself back to the physical sensations of your body, coming back into your body. And another mindset shift is, how would you describe the person sitting in front of you using all 5 senses? Because that requires you to truly be present, to truly be aware of the person, to really see them. For instance, I was sitting next to someone on the plane the other day and I thought, I feel like I know this person. I feel like this might be somebody who I know, but I wasn't sure about it. And so I was kind of trying to think about ways when I am confronted with this other person, I might recognize if it was them. And so, for instance, I saw a tattoo that I otherwise wouldn't have observed. And so now I know when I see this other person to figure out if they were the person sitting next to me, I will look for that tattoo. Really, truly thinking about how to describe your surroundings and the people inside of them. Now, externally, in terms of body language or communication, being present means making profound but soft eye contact. Eye contact that isn't too domineering, where you're kind of glaring at the person, but where you are truly seeing the other person. Also, Olivia Fox-Caban talks about how in the last few seconds of an interaction, we have something where we get anxious when we break eye contact with the other person. And so something that can also be helpful is the last 3 seconds of an interaction, maintaining eye contact. Being present externally is all about reflective listening. Really nodding along when someone's speaking to you, tracking what they're saying, paraphrasing what they're saying, clarifying if you don't understand, asking questions. A little test to see if you're doing this right is, after this person's done speaking, if they then ask you, okay, what did I say? You should be able to answer that question. And also, presence is about asking people about the things they care about, letting them talk about themselves rather than about you, because people love to talk about themselves. It makes them feel good, and what they're going to remember is how you made them feel rather than what exactly you said. So that is the first aspect of charisma, is presence. The second aspect, like I said, is power. Being perceived as powerful means being perceived as being able to influence the world around you. But ironically, being charismatic can increase your power. Therefore, if you want power, it makes sense to act as though you already have it. Internally, what are some mindset shifts to get you in a powerful state of mind? If you're someone who deals with imposter syndrome, remember that 70% of the population struggles with this at some point in their lives. And actually, the more high achieving they are, such as, Ivy League students, the more imposter syndrome they tend to have. So if you're finding yourself having imposter syndrome and judging yourself for that, reframe it in the sense that I'm feeling like an imposter because I'm a really high achiever, or I'm feeling like an imposter, but 70% of the people around me are as well. And so it makes no sense to judge myself for that. Another mindset shift is, don't beat yourself up for making mistakes. All humans make mistakes. Remind yourself of all the people you admire who have made those same mistakes before, such as CEOs who didn't graduate from college. And if you're feeling distressed over something and it's really messing with your confidence, remind yourself that this is a universal experience. It is not just you going through this right now. There's a whole chunk of the population who in this very instant are feeling the exact same thing. So instead of thinking of it as this emotion that has a hold on you, think about it as an emotion that you're sharing with a lot of other people. Remember that your thoughts are just electric impulses and they're not necessarily true. Label them according to what they are. Say, for instance, I'm having an anxious thought. I'm catastrophizing. I'm experiencing a cognitive error right now. Decatastrophize your worst case scenario. Take a bird's eye view look of yourself from the galaxy. Does it make sense for you, this tiny little speck, to be worrying about this small matter? Another mindset shift is to imagine yourself receiving a 20-second hug from a loved one. Oxytocin is the antidote to anxiety, and studies show that a 20-second hug from a loved one is enough to release oxytocin. Like I mentioned, your mind can't tell the difference between fiction and reality, so simply imagining a hug from a loved one is enough to release that oxytocin. You could also visualize yourself succeeding at what it is you're trying to do. For instance, a presentation, a meeting, a conflict coming up. It strengthens the neural paths that actually make it happen. Like I said, I'm thinking about making a video on this, on the idea of visualization and how helpful it could be, so let me know if that's something you're interested in. Another form of visualization can be to imagine holding a council meeting with all your empowerment role models. So think about who are those people that are your empowerment role models. Visualize them sitting in a semicircle while you ask them questions and they give their perspectives, and you take what you want from that council meeting. And lastly, another mindset shift for power is to imagine a past experience where you felt what you are wanting to feel right now. For instance, triumphant, confident, happy, whatever the emotion is that you need. Think in detail about that past experience, visualize it, let yourself fill with those emotions. What about externally? How do we project power? Take up space with your posture. That means draping your arm around the chair. Not like this. Okay. Just being comfortable taking up space in a room. Not fidgeting, being very still. When someone's speaking to you, not tapping your toe or messing with your finger. I'm so bad at this, but I'm trying to do better. Still people act regal. Stillness is very dignified. Also, modulate your sentences. Speak in a low, resonant voice with a slow, measured tempo with frequent pauses. Why low voice? Because unfortunately, people take lower voices more seriously. Maybe it's because of misogyny, maybe it's because they associate higher pitched voices with children. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. And I know it's not fair. I know a lot of us tend to have higher pitched voices, but in an interview, for instance, I've been thinking about this a lot because I have interviews coming up. I'm going to try my very best to not answer an initial hello how I usually do, which is very high pitched, because I already look pretty young. I know if I also sound young, they're going to be like, why am I interviewing a child for this? You want to speak in a resonant voice because you want to be able to project. Of course, you don't want to be yelling, but you don't want to be silent as a mouse either. You want to be slow and measured because people who are not anxious, who are powerful, take their time. They feel comfortable taking pauses. They don't interject and and like. Instead, if they're still thinking about what they want to say, they just take it slow. They take their time. And then when they do say something, it's very eloquent. And pauses really add drama. They draw the person in. And we tend to judge ourselves for taking pauses longer than the other person. We're thinking this person's already lost attention, whereas the other person's thinking, wow, I wonder what they're about to say. And also, before responding to something that someone has said, try to wait 2 seconds and let your face show that you're absorbing what they're saying. You're not just blankly staring at them, you're truly taking in the information, and then you can respond. Before an interaction, you can do what Olivia Fox-Caban calls being the big gorilla. When you see a big gorilla walking down the street, you're going to try to walk around it. And sometimes you want to act like that big gorilla. You want to infuse a little bit of your body language with that energy. And so a way to do that is to kind of shake your body, stretch your hands up to the ceiling, stretch them to the walls out around you, take a wide stance, roll your shoulders back, act like you are the big gorilla before going into an interaction, especially an interaction where it's really important for you to project power, such as a conflict with a really difficult coworker. And when you're giving a presentation, I have not mastered this whatsoever yet, but maybe one day, move around on the podium or the stage or whatever it may be as if it's your living room. Show that you feel comfortable, show that you're fluid, show that you're taking up as much space as you need. And lastly, the third ingredient to charisma is warmth. Warmth is about goodwill towards others, meaning wanting good things for others, trying to make those good things happen for them. It's about being benevolent, altruistic, caring, kind. It's about showing friendly body language. It's about using your power to help others. So internally, a mindset shift to help you get into warmth can be, if you're feeling sad or anxious or upset over something or insecure, imagine that this is happening ultimately to serve your higher good, to serve your higher well-being. For instance, if you're late in traffic to an important meeting, instead of coming really stressed out, really cold, really worried that the other person's going to be mad at you, what if you were to reframe that in the sense that this could have saved you from an accident that you could have gotten in today? I actually have an example of this. My mom, when she was applying for med school, she had to have an important surgery, and so she didn't get in the first year. And I think I'm remembering this correctly. I hope I'm not misremembering, but she said something like the building where the med school was burned down that year. And so in a sense, it could have saved her life that she didn't get into med school the first year that she tried. So reframe things as if it's for your higher well-being. If you're struggling to feel warmth towards someone in particular because maybe you just don't know them that well, maybe you're nervous, or maybe you actually dislike them, it's good to assume the best of intentions, to give them the benefit of the doubt whenever possible. And this isn't for them, it's for you, so that you can project warmth, so that you can be more charismatic and in turn get your needs met. For instance, If you imagine that the speeding driver who almost caused an accident for you is actually trying to save a baby that's choking in the back seat, would you be a little bit more lenient, or would you still judge them so harshly? Try to imagine this person's past, how they got to where they are today, their present, what circumstances they might have to deal with, and try to imagine, what if this is their last day alive? How would you treat them then? When interacting with someone, no matter how much you dislike them, and especially if you dislike them, try to think about 3 things that you actually like about them, 3 things that you appreciate. And it could be as simple as, I like their hair, or they're wearing a nice blazer. It can be superficial things if you can't think of anything more meaningful, so long as it helps you get into a positive outlook towards them. For self-compassion, it can help to think of somebody who is loving, or particularly loving towards you, like maybe the Dalai Lama. For me, it's my cat, and really visualizing them extending you warmth, love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness. Feel that love, receive that compassion, and you will start to feel it more towards yourself as well. Another exercise is to practice gratitude. You can scan your body for things to be grateful for, like, I have feeling in my legs, they carry me places. It could be scanning your environment, like, this is a beautiful home, I'm so blessed to have a roof over my head. Or it could be as far as describing your life in the third person, describing what it is for you when you wake up, where you live, what you look like, who you have around you, where you go to work, what type of setting it is. Think about all the things that you're grateful for. Think about how, in the grand scheme of things, you have so many things to be grateful for. And lastly, another mindset shift is remind people that they had options and they chose you. For instance, flight companies do this sometimes, where they say, we know you had a lot of options, but thank you so much for choosing us. Because people want to feel justified in making the decision that they made. So first of all, you're pumping up their feathers because you're saying, yeah, you had all these options. And then you're saying, thank you for choosing me, even though you had all these options, which makes them feel like, yeah, there's a reason I chose this person. So this can look like something like at an interview, for instance, saying, I know you had a lot of applicants, and so I really appreciate the opportunity to have this interview with you. And in terms of body language and communication, projecting warmth can be giving someone a compliment about a clothing item if it's authentic to you, and asking, what's the story behind that? Asking open-ended questions, not closed. Focusing on questions that will elicit positive emotions. To bounce attention back off of you, you can answer their question with a fact, add a personal note, and redirect the question back to them. For instance, if they say, oh, is that fleur-de-lis from New Orleans? You can say, yes, actually it is. I got it from this store and blah, 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 blah. Why? Have you been there? Do you like New Orleans? The word you should ideally pop up more than the word I. Sometimes you hear people talking and it's all I, and it's like, wow, that person really likes to talk about themselves a lot. I think it can distinguish you really well if instead of talking about yourself so much, you're talking more about the other person, and even choosing the word you instead of I. So it might be like, instead of saying, I heard this and that, saying, oh, you might like this and that. And try not to speak in negatives if possible. For instance, please be on time can be a way to replace try not to be late, or saying don't get mad. You're already kind of priming the other person to get mad at you, stuff like that. To project warmth in your voice, smile when you speak, or if you can't smile in the moment, imagine yourself smiling. I'm mirroring the other person's body language, so depending on the situation, sometimes if they're angry, you might not want to mirror that, but try as much as possible. After a few moments, when you notice, for instance, they shifted their leg, maybe you shift your leg. Some of this we already instinctively do, and you don't want to be doing it where it's that obvious that you're doing, because that would definitely lower your charisma. But if you can do it in a subtle way, that can help the other person feel like you're their tribe, you're their person. And try to sit either next to someone or at a 90-degree angle from them, not face on and not across a table from them, because that can make people uncomfortable. Ask for people's opinions, express appreciation for others. When giving criticism, start by expressing how much you value the other person. Be specific about your criticism. Criticize the behavior, not the entire person. Review the next steps about how to solve this issue. And then at the end, if you feel like they took it well, tell them that you appreciate how they took the feedback, because that can also reinforce them being more open to feedback in the future. Now, when someone's giving you criticism, forgive yourself first, because otherwise you don't want to be too subservient in all this. You don't want to go into a situation where you're going to have to apologize for something minor, being very, very apologetic, extremely apologetic. So forgive yourself first, hear them out, listen, ask for clarifying information, make them feel heard. Go into it with a mindset of, help me understand how you see things. And the last piece of advice for warmth, when answering the phone, do so crisply or professionally, and only after you hear who it is should you start to show warmth. Because otherwise, if you answer very warmly, the other person knows, okay, this is a warm person. But if you get warm when the other person tells you who they are, that tells the other person they feel warmly towards me. It's not that they're just giving out their warmth willy-nilly. So these were my tips from The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox-Caban. I highly recommend this book. Check it out in the description box if you want to read more on this topic. If you enjoyed this video, interacting with it really helps to get boosted by the algorithm, so I would really appreciate it if you hit liked or commented or any of those things. Hope you have a great rest of your week.